Hi, and welcome to Hashtag Deb Talk. I'm Deborah, and Hashtag Deb Talk is an informal mentoring space where you can find insights, recommendations, guidance, advice, suggestions to help you navigate the workplace. If you've subscribed to my YouTube channel, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if not, could you please do that today? Today's topic is things to consider before trying to win an argument with your boss. I'm going to give you the big summary up front. In essence, you need to consider the organization that you're working for and your boss when you're trying to figure out if you should try and win an argument. There are certain qualities that both will have that will make it a safer space to enter into a healthy disagreement with your manager. And then there are certain qualities that will make it unwise for you to persist in trying to win an argument. I want to share a story with you, and I think that's going to illustrate a lot about what we're talking about today. A young college friend of mine, let's call her Jenny. About a year and a half ago, she got a job. And she liked this job a lot. The people were cool. She thought they were cool peeps. And she liked her manager. Her manager had an open door policy. So different members of the staff could just drop into her office and talk about maybe some challenges that they're going through with work or a project and talk about personal stuff. Her team also had very frequent team meetings where they would discuss the projects they were working on, discuss challenges, discuss or talk about ideas that they had for the office. Sometimes the manager, many times actually, would ask for their feedback on stuff. If they didn't agree with something, they could actually say, well, I don't agree with that, and here's why. There were times that the manager even tried to build consensus so that they could decide as a team to do certain things. But something happened. Something changed. Something occurred with the office, and their department, in essence, had a reputation challenge, and it impacted them within the larger organization. A few other things started to change. For example, the manager now had a new boss who was working out of that office. My friend Jenny also noticed that her manager's door was more closed than often. Her coworkers, who used to be a lot more collaborative and all that stuff, they're now coming in and just pretty much keeping their heads down. Fast forward to about maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, the team was having a meeting, and the manager was basically stating, hey, here are some things that I want done with these different projects. She mentioned a project that Jenny had been working on. And so Jenny said, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that that's a good direction to go in because I did this and this is what happened. The manager said, well, I hear you, but I want us to go here. And then Jenny said, yeah, but this is what's been happening when I try doing this, X, Y, and Z. And then the manager shut it down and said, well, this is what we're going to do. After the meeting, the manager's boss actually pulled Jenny aside and said, I kind of found your behavior in the meeting to be insubordinate and a bit combative, which completely shocked Jenny because she wasn't behaving in a way that she considered to be disrespectful. This was no different than what she had done maybe a year and a half ago. And she thought her manager was very open to her disagreeing with something and providing reasons why. So she was absolutely shocked about this. She called me and she was sharing the story with me. And as she shared it, I remember thinking to myself, Mayday, Mayday. And this is what, when you watched old movies back in the day, the pilot, if the plane was going down, would basically say, Mayday, plane is crashing. And I said to her, hon, you've got to adapt really, really quickly. Something has shifted. Stuff has changed in your office. Your manager is probably under some pressures, perhaps, that are different than what she was under before. There are a lot more conversations happening behind closed doors. There's been a shift. So you've got to shift with it. You have to forget about what the office used to be like a year and a half ago and deal with what is happening right now. She did make the shift. But after a few other types of conversations, such as the manager came up to her and told her about another project and basically said, hey, I need you to do this, or you could resign. After conversations like that, for her, it just wasn't worth it. She felt like she had been labeled, and those were the lens that she was going to be seen through. And so after a while, she did decide to quit. Let's pull some stuff from that story. Like I said earlier, one of the first things you have to keep in mind when you're thinking about arguing with your manager or trying to win an argument rather is, what type of organization are you working for? According to the Society for Human Resources Management, there are different types of structures in an organization. There's an informal type structure, and then there's a formal type structure. The formal structure is, in essence, things the organization says about itself. It's the organization's strategy. It's its mission. It's the core values that they have. It's stuff that they put in the org chart. It's the hierarchical setup. It's their funding process. You'll see this type of stuff in their business reports, announcements, and so on. And the formal structures of an organization don't change very often, and they're easier to see. There's also the informal structure, and this is not as easy to see. This consists, in essence, of the culture of an organization as well as the social dynamic aspect of it, which is, in essence, the interpersonal relationships between folks. I want us to define culture, because you know how much I love definitions, because so many times we state the word, but we really don't know what it means in the context of an organization. So according to SHRM, culture is a set of beliefs, attitudes, values, and perspectives on how the world works. It's a set of beliefs, attitudes, values, and perspectives on how the world works. Generally speaking, you're not going to know what the culture of an organization is until you're actually working there. You could go on Glassdoor, and there are reviews that you can look up of past employees about the organization that you're working in right now, but you're really not going to know until you're actually working there. And your best friend, in order to figure this out, is observation. Okay? Observation. Some things that you can observe, and some of these come from SHRM and some of these come from my experience. What's the default leadership style of the organization? Do you find that, generally speaking, across the board, a lot of managers are more democratic? They provide a really collaborative environment? Or do you find that a lot of the managers are more autocratic and a little bit more coercive? Do they encourage new and innovative ideas in the organization? Are they open to changing? Do they welcome folks looking at the current ideas and saying, hey, I think there's something better out there. Here's an idea that I think could work for us. How do they view mistakes? Now, we're not talking about a mistake that costs the company billions of dollars and sinks the company. We're not talking about that. But generally speaking, if you try something different, try something new, and it doesn't work, how do they view mistakes? Is it something that we can learn from, or is it something basically to be punished? What warrants praise or blame? Things like, how do folks, especially leaders, how do they speak to each other, and how do they actually speak with employees? Those are things that you can observe to help you get a sense of the culture that you're part of. Now that we've covered the company, let's talk about your boss. What's your boss like? What's your boss's leadership style in terms of default? Because generally speaking, a lot of managers use different styles depending on the situation they're in, depending on the team and depending on the team member. But we typically have one, like a default. What's your boss's default leadership style? Is he or she the type of person that's usually very open, democratic, pace setting, maybe coaching, affiliative? And I talk a lot more about leadership styles in one of the earlier videos that I've done. It's called Things to Know About Yourself. In video 2, we talk about leadership styles. And so there are a lot of resources there that you can tap into to learn more about that. What's your boss's personality? We also discuss personalities in Things to Know About Yourself Part 1. So be sure to click on those videos. I include them in the description. Does your boss typically invite the team to give their feedback on maybe the direction that the team is going on a particular project or on the team itself? Does he or she typically invite you to challenge maybe an idea that he or she has given out? Do they typically invite you to challenge it? But if you're challenging it, come with something. If you have a situation where the office is open to new ideas, they're collaborative, innovative, they don't mind being challenged, and your boss is similar to that, then you are in a great situation where you can safely, or rather it's a safer space for you to be able to enter into a healthy disagreement, a respectful and healthy disagreement with your manager. But if that is not your story, and that is not the organization that you're working for, and that is not the type of manager you have, then you want to be wise. That is not the safest space for you to try and win an argument. Because what may end up happening is that you do what this phrase says, which is where you win the battle, but you lose the war. Now, I want to be sure that I put 2 caveats here. I'm not talking about moral issues. We're not talking about right and wrong, legal and illegal. Any good company will want employees who are ethical, who will do what's legal, and who will do what's right. So this is not addressing moral issues. I'm also not saying to you that you can't share your opinion or you can't ever disagree with your manager. That's not what I'm saying. There's a difference between, for example, sharing an opinion that happens to be different than what your boss has and trying to win an argument. There's nothing wrong with with simply saying, hey, can I share something? That's your first testing phrase. Can I share something? And if you're allowed to share it, then you can simply say, here are my thoughts on this, and here's why. I'm not blatantly trying to necessarily contradict or disagree per se. I'm stating my opinion. It happens to be different. So there's a difference between entering into an argument and trying to win something and stating what your opinion is. If you state what your opinion is and why you believe what you believe, and they're not open to it, it is not a good plan or a wise choice to continue trying to push and persist in an argument in a space and with a person that is not open to it. There are then a lot of benefits to adapting to the organization that you're part of and adapting to the boss that you're with. One of the benefits is it protects your reputation. How you behave and how you're perceived is all going to impact how you're seen at an organization, sometimes how you're treated at an organization. There is a proverb that says a good reputation is better than stuff. It's better than riches. And I believe that that's true. So you want to be careful. You protect your reputation when you adapt to the organization and the boss that you have, assuming that you want to stay in this organization. It's important that you adapt because it protects your reputation. The other thing that you need to think about is the fact that your boss is the gatekeeper for the 4 Ps, what I call the 4 Ps. First P is performance appraisal. Second is promotions. The third is progress in the organization. And the other is professional reference. You got to keep in mind that your boss does your performance appraisals. And it may be easy to lump in how you're performing in your role to how you are interacting with him or her. So keep that in mind. This is a person that does your performance appraisals. If they're not open to entering into arguments, if they're not open to you contradicting them publicly or privately, then you need to be aware of that, and that could impact your performance appraisals. The second is promotions. If you have this team and you want to get promoted within your team, who are you going to go to? You're going to go to your manager. Your interaction with him or her, again, can impact whether or not you get a promotion, because they may be thinking, I really don't want someone who's persisting in trying to win arguments with me in that particular role. The third is progress in the organization. Let's say you decide, I don't want to be a part of this department. I want to go to another department. The other manager who wants to make sure that they have the very best person for the role, chances are, is going to speak to your manager and say, hey, tell me about this person. Tell me what they're like. Tell me what they're like to work with. Is he or she going to be a good fit for my team? Am I going to have trouble or headaches or whatever with this person? So you got to keep that in mind. And let's say you're like, forget this organization altogether. I'm going to go to a different company. It's going to follow you, because the new company is going to ask, okay, who was your direct manager, and can we call them as a reference? In summary, there's nothing wrong with sharing your opinion and being respectful, and there's nothing wrong with you not agreeing with your boss, but you got to understand where you're working and the type of manager that you have if you're going to think about trying to win an argument. If they have the ideal qualities, then it's a safer space to respectfully disagree. But if they don't have certain qualities, like I shared earlier, it may not be the wisest thing for you to do. So just do your best to understand where you are, understand your manager and the particular pressures that he or she may be under, understand his or her personality, understand what their expectations are of you, maybe understand what the expectations are of him or her, and do your best to just pull behind your team, support your manager, and do your job to the best of your ability. If it comes down to where it's an atmosphere that is unbearable for you, you feel like you can't thrive and you can't grow, and it's just a negative environment, continue to do the very best that you can and not persist in winning an argument if they're not open to that, but begin making plans and making inroads in the direction that you want to go in. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, please take the time to like this video and to share it with someone that you think it will help. Until next time, have a wonderful work week.